Tonight on the Daily Debrief, a father accused of murder over the death of his infant says it wasn't the drugs, wasn't the mother, but that he was clueless his son wasn't receiving care. And this man faces a possible death sentence on charges he gunned down an on-duty officer. Plus, Alec Baldwin under arrest in New York, Heather Locklear facing a civil suit, and a woman chokes out a bouncer at a bar. That's straight ahead on the Daily Debrief for Friday, November 2nd. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Debrief. A juror had to be excused today after having a so-called meltdown in the murder trial of a man accused of neglecting his 4-month-old child to the point the child died. Our coast-to-coast coverage of trials begins in southeastern Iowa, where Zachary Keene faces first-degree murder and child endangerment charges. Authorities found the body of Sterling Keene rotted and infested with maggots. A medical examiner said the child died from neglect. Keene's girlfriend, the baby's mother, faces a separate trial on the same charges. Keene appeared upset in court during a 911 call where he said his girlfriend checked on the child and found him dead. Keene also said he was disoriented when his girlfriend told him the horrible news. When Keene called 911, he theorized that maybe the child died of sudden infant death syndrome. Keene covered his face, refused to look as the prosecutor showed the jury graphic photos of his son's autopsy. But it seems there may be many faces to Zachary Keene. At one point, our cameras caught him sharing in a joke with someone in the courtroom while sitting there on trial for murder. But today, the defendant took the stand. He said he trusted the child's mother to provide care, and that if he knew there was a problem, he would have stepped in.
Were you at any time in your son's life aware that that was a condition that he was in? You knew that he was not being fed, what would you have done?
I would have fed him, for sure.
You knew that he was not being changed, what would you have done?
I would have parked the wastebasket beside me and I would have changed it myself.
And any time is there a reason that you didn't check to see whether he was being changed?
No, I trust her judgment. I mean, look at my daughter, she's very healthy, and so I trusted her.
The defendant said he basically was playing dumb about his infant son's condition, but refused to blame his girlfriend.
Are you saying that Sterling's death is all the fault of Cheyenne Harris?
No.
You're saying that you have some responsibility?
If I would have known, yes, I do.
So you're saying that what you did wrong is you didn't know?
Yes.
You told this jury that you used methamphetamine, right?
That's correct.
But you told them the only reason you did it is to stay awake to work, right?
Yes.
You told this jury that you gave Cheyenne Harris methamphetamines, right?
That's correct.
But the only reason you gave it to her is because she'd become difficult if you did it, right?
That's correct.
You told this jury that you used your company's credit card without authorization, right?
Yes.
But the only reason you did it is to feed your family, right?
Yes.
You told this jury that you didn't change diapers because you had a weak stomach, right?
That's correct.
And you couldn't handle the smell of feces, right?
Yes.
But you worked at a manure hauling company?
Human feces and animal feces are different in my nose.
Your nose is that refined?
Of course.
Wow, a nose that refined. Well, it went downhill from there as the state exposed the defendant's contradictions.
You told this jury that you didn't see Sterling because he was asleep. Is that what you're telling this jury?
Yes.
And you're telling this jury you didn't see Sterling in your apartment because Cheyenne told you not to disturb him, right?
Yes.
You told this jury that you didn't turn the light on in Sterling's room because you didn't want Sterling to swim, right?
That's correct.
So that's why you couldn't see in the room?
You could see a little bit. It was a mild light.
You told this jury that you didn't interact with Sterling in the living room of the apartment because he had a bad smell, right?
No.
A sour smell, you described it. Isn't that what you said?
Yes, but we were headed out on a family get home, so there wasn't much time to interact.
You told us during the reason you didn't call 911 right away is because you didn't have the cell signal. Is that right?
That is correct.
How many doors did you go knock on asking for a cell phone or asking for help?
None.
Attorney Ross Kramer joins us tonight on the Daily Debrief. Ross, your analysis of the defendant's performance.
You know, I think that there was a big issue here in what the jury would perceive from this testimony, not just in the substance of it, but in the tone, in the demeanor. This was a witness who wasn't really showing any kind of remorse or emotion or humanity. These are the kind of things that would have made an impression on a jury and made it hard to convict him. He really sat there very robotically, I thought, and almost taking this like another day at the office. This was not the kind of emotional reaction on the witness stand that I think a juror would have expected here.
The judge announced at the end of testimony today that a juror had a, quote, meltdown and that he needed to excuse that juror. That is drastic.
Yeah, I mean, these kind of cases are so hard on a whole orbit of people. Obviously, it's a tragedy for the child who died, for the parents, for the family of it. But for jurors, for prosecutors, for defense lawyers, for a judge, these are the kind of cases and these are the kind of images that'll haunt them for years.
Well, the defendant's father testified that he is the one who has legal guardianship over the defendant's first child. He also said the defendant obtained only an 8th grade education in local Mennonite schools.
You were Mennonite, is that correct?
Yes.
Within your community, what is the role of women now?
Generally, it would be that they would be the homemaker. They would take care of the house, raise the children, take care of the children, because and yet, that somewhat, in some cases that changes because of finances, that the women are taking jobs outside the home.
What would the role of the man or the father be in the Mennonite household?
Generally, it would be they would be the one making the living, providing for the household.
Is that how Zach was raised?
Yes.
Sir, I'll ask you, within that family structure, if the man were to realize that something's wrong within the family, would he step up generally and help within your culture or within your faith?
Yes, generally.
That is an example of a defense attorney asking one question too many. Well, the defendant's brother testified about a bizarre conversation where the defendant questioned whether he was even little Sterling's father.
On more than one occasion, your brother told you that he didn't think he was the father of Sterling, correct?
I don't think more than one occasion.
Well, you said you had a couple conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to trick you. I thought that's what you meant. So how many times did he say that he may not be the father of Sterling?
I remember precisely maybe one time.
And there were other times that you talked about it?
I don't think we talked about him being the father or not being the father. We talked about a son, but not necessarily if he was the father or not.
I see. And he thought maybe he wasn't the father because he was gone a lot trucking when Sterling was conceived, right?
Correct.
That's what he told you, correct?
I believe so.
And he told you that shortly after Sterling was born?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that tactic ultimately went nowhere, with the defense eventually stipulating that Zachary Keene was indeed the father of the dead infant. Earlier witnesses testified that the defendant and the child's mother were using drugs.
During all those times that you saw the defendant, did he ever tell you that he had a baby?
Not that I can recall.
He didn't tell you that he had a baby son?
No.
Did you know he had a little girl?
Yes.
Did he talk about the little girl?
Yes.
How often would he talk about his little girl?
At least once a night or every time I see him.
But never about the baby?
Mm-hmm.
no?
No.
Did you ever see the defendant use drugs?
Yes.
What drugs did he use that you saw him use?
Meth and cocaine were the main two. A couple of rare occasions was marijuana.
How often would he use the methamphetamine?
Daily.
One other witness for the defense was a social services worker who testified about the child's mother's drug use. Apparently, a hospital caught it but never reported it. The witness was dodgy, though, on cross-examination.
Based on your position as a child protective worker, what does the presence of methamphetamine in a baby's umbilical cord mean?
It means that the mother used methamphetamine during her pregnancy.
If an infant is born with an illegal substance such as methamphetamine in their body, that's grounds for DHS intervention, isn't it?
It is if it's reported to the hotline, yes.
Were you able to determine whether or not there had actually been a referral to a social worker for this family?
Can you clarify when you say social worker? Are you referring to an agency, a hospital? I need you to repeat the question.
Were you able to determine during your investigation whether there had ever actually been a referral made?
Referral made to where? I guess I'm confused by your question.
To a social worker. Was the report that this family would be referred for social work ever followed up on to your knowledge?
Specifically, no.
All of that testimony came after a parade of first responders described finding the child dead.
So say I do.
The prosecution called witness after witness to testify about arriving at the Keene home and finding little Sterling dead.
His eyes were open and he was a blank stare.
Nurse Tony Friedrich was there early.
His arm was cold and stiff, and he had what appeared to be blood around on the side of his mouth. My assessment is this is not a baby who I can do CPR on.
You raise your right hand.
Chief Deputy Reed Paulo struggled to make sense of it.
You can see every rib. It's really small.
His assessment continued.
There was feces and urine that had been straining through the diaper for a long time.
Deputy Jason Rosel said air fresheners had been deployed to cover up this.
The first thing that I could smell was human urine. When I got closer to baby, I could smell, I guess the only way to describe it is death.
Medical investigator Jeremy McGrath said the little boy was covered in blankets that became wet with decomposition.
Was there anything else unusual that you saw around the child?
There was flies and gnats.
Prosecutors estimate that Sterling Keene was left for between 9 and 14 days before his parents finally called for help.
Malnutrition, dehydration, infection caused by diaper rash. That's what caused this child's death. And ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show that this defendant, the father of that child, is responsible for that death.
Back to attorney Ross Kramer now. Ross, the defense tried several theories here, the drugs, the mother. It was spinning its wheels on almost every single one of them, and the defendant argued himself out of a number of those theories.
Yeah, it was really up to him to tie everything together here. He was going to be the centerpiece in this horrific case. If he could say, you know, this was just a whole host of things that went wrong, or these were all dominoes. My life was falling apart, my drug use, my drug dealing. You know, I tried to appeal to social services, nothing worked out. There's a chance that some sort of narrative thread could have come out to pull him out of this. But he sat on the stand. He didn't embrace any of this. He didn't make himself a portrait of the kind of humanity that I don't think jurors would have felt sympathetic towards. I thought the whole defense fell apart.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but the defendant argued himself out of several of the theories that were possible.
Yeah, he didn't embrace the drug addict defense in the same way that I think he really needed to.
Attorney Ross Kramer, appreciate your insight on the Daily Debrief tonight.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead tonight here on the Daily Debrief, a death penalty murder trial against a Tennessee man accused of gunning down a police officer to get out of being arrested. Also, a California cop slaps Heather Locklear with a civil suit the Celebrity Debrief, when we return. Stick around. Before we head back to court, let's get a check on other incidents making headlines with Anthony Velez.
Here are today's top crime stories trending on Law&Crime.com and across the country. A man in Missouri who served 9 years in prison after being convicted of violently shaking his infant son in 1998 could face additional charges after his son died earlier this year. 39-year-old Olin Shane Tannery was convicted for multiple counts, including first-degree assault after shaking his infant son, Dominic Pitzenbarger. Pitzenbarger survived the assault, but his death in April was linked to the injuries he suffered in the attack. Tannery now faces a charge of second-degree murder. A mother in Chicago posted a now viral irate hot take about a bloody crime scene left unclean near a Little League field in Joliet. Jessie Gutierrez became fed up when she realized kids were playing baseball near a pool of blood left behind from an earlier fatal robbery. Gutierrez claims police and fire officials allegedly refused to clean up the scene and told her she can clean it up herself.
They handed us bags of biohazard and gloves and basically said that clean it up yourself.
The Will County Sheriff's Office reportedly said firefighters washed the scene twice once deputies finished processing it. Authorities in New York have released surveillance footage of a woman choking out a much larger nightclub bouncer she thought slapped her in the buttocks. 22-year-old Kira LaGrave of Plattsburgh can be seen on video choking out the unidentified bouncer at 518 nightclub in October. LaGrave's friend is seen slapping her in the rear end on security footage from a different angle, but LaGrave mistakenly thinks the bouncer is the offender and puts a sick chokehold on the unsuspecting man. LaGrave now faces the charge of strangling. Those were today's top crime stories. I'm Anthony Velez for the Daily Debrief.
Now to another case we're covering tonight out of Memphis, Tennessee, where prosecutors painted a chaotic scene in the death penalty murder trial of Tremaine Wilburn. He faced 4 charges originally, including first-degree murder, but as his trial began, he pleaded guilty to carjacking and the 2 firearms charges on your screen. This all involves the death of Officer Sean Bolton. Prosecutors say Wilburn pulled the trigger 8 times to avoid being arrested. A man at the scene used the fallen officer's radio to call for help.
Hello? 364 Delta. Y'all got a man down. Where? Location. 72 Summer Lane, man. Hurry up, you bleed, man. Bad, man.
You recognize the person that was saying that?
Me? Please hurry up.
Who was that?
Me? 4870. Summer Lane. 4870, right? He shot. Officer, he shot.
How long was it before someone responded after you got on that radio?
About 2 or 3 minutes.
When you saw the officer, you saw a hold of his shoulder.
Yes, sir.
And he was face down with his hand in his face. Did you happen to observe his weapon?
In the holster.
What did you say?
It was in the holster.
Okay, but it wasn't out.
No.
Time to switch gears now for a look at celebrity legal issues making headlines. Jill Stanley is an attorney who tracks these matters. She's with us in studio today. Jill, good to see you across the table.
Good to see you. Great day to be in New York because big celebrity arrests going on in New York today.
Alec Baldwin this afternoon gets arrested for misdemeanor assault.
Yeah.
What happened here?
Well, yeah, just in time for me to be here. Too bad I wasn't in the East Village to witness it. I really could have given you a bird's eye view of what happened. So what happened? Well, we all know Alec Baldwin is known to be a little hot-headed. So this was allegedly all over a parking spot. So he was allegedly saving a spot. Who knows? Maybe Hilaria was supposed to be parallel parking in there, and another man came in and took the spot, and that was not going to fly with Alec, who decided to get into a little physical altercation. He was arrested, and now I believe he's charged with assault and harassment. So both misdemeanors, not the biggest deal in the world, but we know Alec has been in this situation before, so we're going to see what happens here.
The civil suit is certainly coming, but let's talk now about a hockey player, Evander Kane, a lawsuit for allegedly promising but failing to pay for an abortion.
Yeah. So there's allegedly a contract. And so this is a breach of contract action. So imagine this. He says to his girlfriend, who, by the way, there's allegations that she's not the public girlfriend. She's like what we call the side chick, and so nobody knows about her, I guess just the two of them. He got her pregnant once. She got an abortion. He got her pregnant twice. She got an abortion. On the third time, she gets pregnant again, and he says, if you get an abortion this time, I'll give you $3 million. She says, deal. Gets the abortion, no money came. She said, nah, we had a contract. I want my money, and I need $3 million extra for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
It is hard to prove a verbal contract, which I'm assuming is what this is.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if there was something in writing, because it seems like this might fail in terms of being against public policy. You really don't want contracts for things that are as sensitive or as personal as abortion. But there are other cases and instances involving other not National Hockey League players, but other athletes where there have been such type of contracts, whether it's in a prenup or something like that. But courts have found them enforceable in some other areas. So I think this one is a verbal contract, harder to enforce, yes. But this is a pretty dicey situation. I mean, 3 abortions, $3 million. It's kind of just, as I say, icky all around.
Exactly. Okay, Heather Locklear, now she was arrested. There's a lawsuit now headed her way for hitting the cop who arrested her. This is a civil case.
Yes, I have such empathy for Heather Locklear because she is just falling and falling and falling. And she really does have issues. She has mental problems, and she has also an addiction problem. So her life has become so sad, and she's really kind of fallen down from where she was. So now she's slapped with a civil suit stemming from her criminal arrest because she kicked and allegedly assaulted one of the EMT workers who came to her aid. But what kind of bothers me about this is that primarily this case really should have been a workers' compensation case, not a civil suit against her personally. So, you know, this is kind of like an unclear situation. I want to know why they didn't first pursue the civil suit, a workers' comp civil suit, as opposed to this third-party claim, which you can do, but it's really not the way things are done.
Yeah, that's just an interesting thing. I mean, some people could turn around and say, well, maybe the officer is out for money.
Well, I mean,
she's got deep pockets.
I don't know how deep her pockets are anymore.
Well, you raise a good point.
She doesn't work so much anymore, and she's really struggled a lot. So I don't have an issue with a claim if she actually got injured, but how serious are these injuries that she has on top of a workers' comp claim, a third-party suit? Because it's likely that she already has the workers' comp claim because she's been missing work, and she's been reduced to a different kind of duty.
Jill Stanley, appreciate your insight here on the Daily Debrief.
Yeah, lots to cover today.
A lot going on. Well, this Baldwin thing just popped up, so we had to talk about it.
We do have to talk about it.
That is all the time we have for today, though, on the Daily Debrief. A reminder that the Law and Crime Network will be streaming many of the trials we discussed beginning Monday at 9 a.m. From all of us at Law and Crime, have a good weekend.